Thank you so much for coming this morning to the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta's Housing Collaborative Press Conference. My name is Cecilia Cheeks, and we will begin the program shortly. As a point of privilege, I will ask that you silence your phones and wait for us very patiently. We'll be with you in just a few moments. Thank you. I'd like to welcome Mr. Frank Fernandez, President and CEO of the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta. Frank Fernandez.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today. We thought that was a nice touch, and hopefully the rest of them are going to be following. Food. It's got a big basement.
Good morning. My name is Silvanus Udoka. I serve as the Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs here at Clark Atlanta University. And I stand in for our President, Dr. George T. French, Jr. I am so delighted to welcome you to Clark Atlanta University. Thank you so much, Frank, for starting us off, and good morning to all of you. On behalf of Clark Atlanta University, welcome to our beloved campus. We absolutely love this campus. I'd like to thank all our guests for your attendance and your continued support. More specifically, I'd like to thank our community partners, the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta, the City of Atlanta, the Urban League of Greater Atlanta, Wells Fargo, Atlanta Regional Commission, Atlanta Habitat for Humanity, and the Atlanta Neighborhood Development Partnership, Inc., ANDP. We are honored that you chose Clark Atlanta University to host this initiative that directly impacts economic prosperity for the residents of Atlanta. Today, the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta and its collaborative partners have made it possible to raise $146 million to go towards affordable home ownership for Black and brown people here in Metro Atlanta. Right now, only 49% of people of color own their own home, in comparison to 75% of white individuals who own their own home. Securing more affordable housing is just the beginning. In order to close the racial wealth gap, it is important that most people of color earn degrees, secure high-paying wages, and afford the same economic opportunities that white American citizens have. You will hear from some very talented community leaders here today who are prepared to help make that a reality. A few of them include Mr. Frank Fernandez, President and CEO of Community Foundation of Greater Atlanta. Congresswoman Nikema Williams, U.S. House of Representatives for Georgia 5th District. Mrs. Nancy Flake Johnson, President and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Atlanta. Ms. Rosalind Merrick, Chief Development Officer for Atlanta Habitat for Humanity. And you have several other distinguished guests in this audience that you will get to interact with. Again, I want to thank everyone for their time and attendance, and a special thank to you, the hardworking staff that have helped bring this event to fruition. Can you believe this house? I hope all of you can take something valuable away from this event, and the community partners you will hear from today, I know that I will. Without further ado, let me ask each one of you to enjoy this program and our campus. Please take time to wander and see this campus while you are here. Thank you all so much.
Morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for that warm welcome, Provost. Thank you for hosting this event today. We greatly appreciate it. And thank you all for being here. Today marks the third event I've been to this week that is focused on these twin challenges of housing affordability and upward mobility. And for me, that speaks to the centrality of housing. Not only does it provide a shelter and that place we call a home and all that entails, but it also in many ways serves as a hub for opportunity. Where you live shapes largely and significantly where you go to school, how safe you feel walking down the street, what kinds of jobs you have access to, what kind of health care you have access to. All these things that are fundamental to our life prospects, to whether we really have a shot at a good and decent life. That is why I'm very excited to be here today announcing this initiative, this significant step toward addressing our community's poor performance in ensuring homeownership and wealth building for all Atlantans. This initiative will help build and or preserve over 6,000 homes for households of color over the next 4 years. It also will importantly help build and develop and grow nonprofits, developers and builders of color, as well as help address the lack of adequate racial and ethnic representation in the residential real estate community. That's brokers, lenders, appraisers, and all those who make up and help connect us to this American dream that we all want to be part of. And today, and you heard a little bit earlier, I'm proud to announce that on behalf of the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta, as well as many partners, nonprofit, for-profit, public sector, that we have come together to amass over $220 million of commitments. So again, $220 million, 6,000 homes over 4 years. That is a significant thing, and that would not be possible without our partners. So I want to right now ask, we have our folks behind us, as well as those in the audience, to just stand up for 1 second and just look around, all right? These are all the folks, and give them a hand, yes. These are all the folks who helped make this happen. So that's the good news. So the not so good news is why this is necessary. We know that studies have showed us repeatedly that our region and our city has some of the lowest upward mobility rates in the country. And this despite the fact that we have the largest, or second largest, population of mortgage-ready black households in the country. That is unacceptable. That has to change, and that is why we're here today. You heard a little bit of stats earlier from the provost around some of the disparities we have. Here in our community, black Atlantans are less than half as likely to own a home and twice as likely to have zero net worth. That has to change. That is unacceptable. That is why we are here. And why we're here is because of the leadership of the folks here, as well as the leadership from our elected leaders. And I want to lift up, because we have Odie McDonald, the mayor's chief of staff. I like him not only because he's another tall guy. He's taller than me. I don't think you'd have fit through that door. But because the city of Atlanta and the mayor have demonstrated tremendous leadership on affordable housing to the tune of committing $20 million to this effort. That's something to And so to talk about this effort, this did not happen by accident. There was a catalyst for this effort. A little over a year and a half ago, our friends at Wells Fargo and the Wells Fargo Foundation put out a grant application as part of their Wealth Opportunities Through Homeownership or WORTH program. And we were fortunate enough, along with 7 other cities, to receive a $7.5 million commitment from Wells Fargo to help create across the country over 40,000 homes for homeowners of color. And I want to thank our friends at Wells Fargo, because it was a true catalyst. I know not only here in these other communities, because it not only served as a forcing mechanism, but it also really accelerated the work that was already happening and pushed us to think and act differently, to think about all the different resources we had available and how we could stretch it further, how we can combine it, how can we create connective tissue to make 1 + 1 = more than 2. And that is how we arrived at today, when we were able to amass more than $220 million in commitments, because it is not just financial commitments. The provost alluded to the financial commitments, but also commitments of homes from builders and developers, commitment of in-kind data analysis, commitment of staffing. All that together is needed to be able to get to helping preserve those 6,000 homes and build those 6,000 homes we're committed to doing over the next 4 years. And so I'm not going to steal Nancy's thunder, because she's going to talk about this a little bit. But in practical terms, a lot of this is about bringing more resources, but also connecting the dots better and working through some of those things that are systemic, that have prevented black and brown households and prospective home buyers to be able to connect and achieve that American dream. And one of the foundational elements of the implementation plan that we've developed collectively is this online homeownership hub, which you're going to hear about in a little bit, which really tries to do that very thing, connect the dots and reduce barriers between prospective home buyers of color and the realtors and the mortgage brokers and the builders and developers that are out there that can and should and want to serve them. So we're going to hear more about that. And on a practical perspective, for our real estate professionals that are out there, this online hub, according to Nancy, is going to be open in January, I believe. She'll give you the date. But in the interim, please feel free to reach out to us, because we're collecting a list of folks who really want to engage with this at info@cfgreateratlanta.org. So we have you on the list. So when the hub does go live, I didn't mean to put Nancy in the spot. We will be able to share that information with all of you, because we're really excited about this effort, excited about the possibility that it represents. Because in many ways, Atlanta has been a city and a community of contradiction. We are the city too busy to hate, the Black Mecca, the city that is a place for young creatives, a place for folks to be able to meet their dreams. And we are also the most unequal income city in the country and have the lowest mobility rates. we have to figure out how we better reconcile that, how we actually live up to the aspirations that we have for our community, this beloved community. We're sitting here in the AUC, we're sitting here in Clark, Atlanta, and we have to live up to that. And this initiative is a step towards that. And for us at the Community Foundation, we have been supporting Metro Atlanta for over 70 years. And this effort is part of our new strategic focus and plan called Together ATL, which is really focused on what we can do to help ensure that everyone who calls this region home has a fair shot at a decent and good life, and that our community is a more equitable and prosperous place for all, not just some. So I'm excited that you're all here. I'm excited to be here with our friends at Wells Fargo and with all the partners who have helped make this happen. And right now I'm going to turn it over to our Congresswoman Nikema Williams. You can share some remarks, and then I'll come back at the end after all our friends here have spoken to answer any questions. So thank you.
I'm a little shorter than our previous speaker, so I could fit through the door, which is what we want for all Atlanta residents. We want you to be able to walk through that door of homeownership. Good morning, everyone. Y'all, I am Congresswoman Nikema Williams, and I am honored to represent you in Georgia's 5th Congressional District. And I am also proud to represent Clark Atlanta University in Congress. Part of that is because y'all HBCUs are at the core of everything that has made my life possible. I'm a 3rd-generation HBCU alum, and I know Dr. French is not here today, but he has always opened the doors of this campus for the community to come in and for us to have moments like this to celebrate. So to every Clark Atlanta student and anyone at the AU Center who is watching today or is here today, don't let anyone tell you that an HBCU degree doesn't prepare you for the real world, because I am proof that an HBCU degree not only prepares you for the real world, but so is our vice president. And y'all, we are leading for the people every day. I am also honored to be here with Wells Fargo to announce the $7.5 million investment in Atlanta and new homeowners of color. The Wealth Opportunities Restored Through Homeownership Initiative aims to create 5,000 new homeowners of color in Atlanta by 2025. Y'all, that's not that far away. So that's a good goal in a short amount of time, Sanders. I like these short time frames because then we get to continue to do more. And you're going to hear more about this later from the other partners here. But in January, y'all, I hosted Wells Fargo CEO Charlie Scharf, and he and I had a meeting where he conveyed that Wells Fargo's ongoing commitment was about equity. What we see on display again here today, and with the hard work from Sanders and our Wells Fargo team in Atlanta, is that commitment to equity. I like to call Georgia's 5th district the fighting 5th. And I do that because we're fighting for fairness, we're fighting for equity, and we're fighting so that every person has the resources needed to thrive, and that includes home ownership. It all starts with having a safe, dignified place to call home. And I know this because, y'all, I might be in the United States Congress now, but I come from humble beginnings. I grew up on the margins of society in rural Alabama in a home with no indoor plumbing and no running water. But I always had a roof over my head, and that made all the difference growing up. And I want this for everyone. I take that lived experience with me to Congress, where one of my top priorities is closing the racial wealth gap. And you've heard over and over that my home city of Atlanta, unfortunately, has the widest racial wealth gap in the country. We lead the nation in economic inequality and a lack of economic mobility. But we're here today because these are policy decisions. These are decisions made by leaders, and we can do something about it, and we will. It doesn't have to be this way. I'm fighting for the people as a member of the House Financial Services Committee and the Subcommittee on Diversity and Inclusion. My committee assignments put me right in the middle of solutions-focused work that will finally close the racial wealth gap in this country. Now, there are many layers to eliminating the racial wealth gap, but expanding opportunities for home ownership is one of the most powerful tools that we have. The failure to prioritize access to home ownership for Black Americans has resulted in a Black-white home ownership gap that is wider today than it was in the years prior to the Fair Housing Act 55 years ago. Let that sink in. Wider today than it was 55 years ago. And that's not okay, because y'all, home ownership opens doors. Even as a whole member of Congress, I'm still pretty new in my home ownership process. And so this journey has already provided the security and of a future for my son. I have a 7-year-old, and it's about building that generational wealth and giving Carter the safe place to find home. I don't have to worry about dramatic rent increases. I'm building equity and that foundation for my Carter Cakes and his future. And this same, he doesn't like the Carter Cakes part. He's 7 now. He thinks he's a big boy, but it doesn't stop. But y'all, this same opportunity that I have for my Carter Cakes, I want it available for everyone. And I'm working diligently to make this a reality with so many of the partners here with us today. And that's why I've co-sponsored the Housing is Infrastructure Act, the Ending Homelessness Act, and the Down Payment Towards Equity Act. 3 bills in a groundbreaking legislative package to solve our housing crisis. We've never seen anything like this in Congress, and I'm gonna keep pushing to get this package over the finish line. In the Inflation Reduction Act, which I helped to pass, we're investing in our existing housing stock. I just hosted the Secretary of HUD here was it last week, Odie, with the mayor? And y'all, that shows the commitment that this administration has to home ownership. This is her 2nd visit right here to Georgia's Fighting 5th Congressional District. Families in affordable housing units will benefit from resources in the Inflation Reduction Act to make their homes more efficient, more comfortable, and resilient, all ways to keep money in your pockets. And while the Inflation Reduction Act was transformational, it's only a down payment on our nationwide investment in housing. We can and must do so much more. We must make further investments to increase our stock of affordable housing and expand the availability of down payment assistance to open up homeownership to more families. It's also important to make sure that our financial institutions don't close doors to the American dream. In July, I introduced the Expanding Access to Credit Through Consumer Permission Data Act. With this bill, home loan lenders can consider financial data that is historically not included in credit scores. Y'all, this will help bring the American dream within reach for everyone, no matter your bank account or if you even have a credit score, because we can bring other things into the conversation. And of course, we need to celebrate when companies step up and do the right thing and invest in our communities, because Sanders, no, I'm gonna call you out when you're wrong, but I'm gonna celebrate you when you're right. And Wells Fargo today is doing it right. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So y'all, there's many reasons to close the housing crisis, and there's many ways to make sure that we're closing it, and it will take all of us working together to end this crisis. That means the federal government, our big banks, our universities, our cities, along with their financial empowerment programs, you name it. We must, in the words of John Lewis, keep our eyes on the prize. And if you're willing to do the right thing and invest in our people, I'll stand by you every day to create a country where everyone can thrive, not merely survive. And it is now my pleasure to introduce Chuck Bishop, Wells Fargo's head of home lending diverse segments, who will share more about this very important program. Thank you all so much.
Good morning. Come on, Clark, Atlanta. Good morning. All right. We've got a lot of reasons to be happy today. First, I want to say thank you for this opportunity to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to represent Wells Fargo in these activities. Thank you to Congresswoman Williams for those words, and thank you to the mayor's office for being here and to sharing this collaborative work. This work is collaborative. It's going to take many of us to make a difference in this space. I'm going to deviate for a second, and I have to say that this morning I participated in a roundtable of Clark Atlanta students, and they were current students and recent graduates. The center that you have for financial literacy and the quality of the students here is phenomenal. To hear the students' journey, these students aren't going to be successful by mistake. They have a plan. I can't imagine having been that planful at 19. But they know where they're going, and they know how to get there. And I'm just happy that I was here today to be able to share a part of that. This is the second time this week I've had an opportunity to be with HBCU students. As Sunday, I was in Memphis at the MBA conference with students from Fisk University. Again, our best and our brightest are amongst us, and I look forward to the legacy that they will continue to build. We're all here today because we need to address the issues of racial inequality and housing disparity. For far too long, our country has had impediments that have kept Black and brown people from having a piece of the American dream, homeownership. For many people, housing is the start of the building of wealth. Housing is the place that is not just a house, it's a home. The pandemic taught us that it's a place that became a place of worship. It became our gym, it became our office. But it's a place that we understand has more meaning than just financial meaning, as there are social benefits that come from homeownership as well. I'm struck by the collective strength of the leaders in this room who are looking to make a difference for Atlanta and building a process and a progress map for affordable homeownership to be attainable for all. With this $7.5 million grant from Worth, and again, Worth stands for Wealth Opportunities Restored Through Homeownership, it's an accelerator to the programs that are already in place. You guys have done so much in this market, and I'm hearing the multiple millions of grants that have been attained. This is going to be phenomenal that we can be a part of this growth process. Atlanta is one of 8 markets that we chose for this grant. The beauty of this grant was it wasn't Wells saying we're going to fund X. It was you saying we need money for this. And we funded those projects that were sourced by the local entities here who decided what was best for your market. We're also working with the faith community to be able to allow houses of worship to launch housing solutions and support their interests. And there's much underway. Working together on affordable homeownership and sustainable homeownership is going to allow our legacies to be passed through generations. I would now like to turn it over to Nancy Flake Johnson, who is President and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Atlanta. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm a very proud HBCU graduate myself from Howard University. HBCU, oh, HU, you know. All right. So supporting Black and Indigenous people of color to become homeowners is just directly aligns with the mission and the work of the Urban League of Greater Atlanta. We are pleased to be a member of the collaborative to work together to boost homeownership among the BIPOC community throughout Metro Atlanta. Leveraging the Wells Fargo support and, just hearing that 7.5 million leveraged 225 million is worthy of recognition. And I really want to give Frank his leadership. He really championed that cause, and thank you, Frank, for that. We're here with a coalition that is broad-based. You've heard of it. And we're very excited to bring all these different communities together for this purpose. Efforts to increase home ownership in the Black community in particular have been stymied historically by governmental disinvestment in our neighborhoods, lack of financing to purchase and repair homes, an explosion of substandard housing, and redlining and entrenched bias. Now, we have a chance to change that picture in Metro Atlanta. Research from the federally backed home mortgage company Freddie Mac shown that our region has one of the largest groups of mortgage-ready Black homeowners or prospective homeowners. But of course, there are some barriers and challenges for those homeowners at this time. And so our goal is to close the racial wealth gap, really put a dent in it with this initiative. This new Worth Atlanta initiative's goal of generating 6,000 combined renovated and new housing units, affordable housing units for this targeted population by 2020, I've heard 2026 and 2025, but over the next 4 years. It's a tall order, but we are committed to be successful because we are working with a powerful coalition that I know is dedicated to the task. I'm also excited because I know that the BIPOC families that live throughout this region, though it is recognized as the most challenging place for economic mobility and income inequality in the nation, our families want to own homes. And we have a responsibility to our citizens to create a world where they have the opportunity to thrive. We owe that to everyone. And we have a disproportionate impact on Black and brown folks in this region, and this will take a chip out of that deep, dark divide. As a U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development certified housing counseling agency for decades, the Urban League of Greater Atlanta and our dedicated coalition of partners in this initiative are dedicated to meet prospective home buyers where they are and support them to become prepared to own and sustain their own homes. We offer free monthly homebuyer education workshops, pre-purchase counseling, credit counseling sessions, coupled with guidance and fair access. We know we can be successful. Down payment assistance by supporting BIPOC developers to build their capacity and increase our inventory. We're really taking a 360 approach. Metro Atlanta and the state of Georgia have some of the widest wealth gaps, we know that, in the nation. But what we are doing with this initiative, it's not a handout. What we are doing is leveling a playing field and a pathway to home ownership and beginning the process of closing the racial wealth gap. It's not only access to purchase a home, but the home, we want it in a safe, secure neighborhood. We want it to be able to really create a community. So the Urban League of Greater Atlanta's role is to create the hub that Frank mentioned. And our team at the Urban League that will lead this process will be Jonette Brown, our Senior Director for Housing and Wealth Building. And Jonette, I would love for you to give her recognition for her hard work every day. And Jonathan Smith, who is our IT administrator. And all of our collective partners will help us ensure that this hub is user-friendly, it's comprehensive, and it's impactful. It will serve as a one-stop shop for BIPOC first-time and mortgage-ready homeowners. And it will also serve as a hub for developers and for all of our partners to connect with one another with the goals of accelerating and boosting homeownership. For BIPOC home buyers, they will be able to connect with metro area HUD certified housing counseling agencies like Urban League, but close to where they live. And in addition, potential buyers will meet related providers such as realtors and insurance providers, mortgage lenders, that entire ecosystem that is required to connect with in order to successfully complete the purchase of a home. We have the good fortune of working with longtime partners in this new effort, including Atlanta Housing, Atlanta Neighborhood Development Partnership, the Atlanta Regional Commission, Habitat for Humanity, and of course, the Community Foundation of Greater Atlanta, and so many more. Finally, we want to recognize Wells Fargo for making these investments in our communities across the nation. I believe there are 8 markets, and there are other Urban League affiliates that are connected to those projects as well. And I want to give a special shout out to Ty Roperson. She is the Vice President and Senior Community Development Officer for the bank. She's an incredible advocate for home ownership, for small businesses, and you know, Ty is just a humble, effective leader, and she deserves this call out. She's also the chair of my board. Come on, well, I've got to keep it real, but no, seriously, she's a incredible chair and a very humble and effective one there too. So thank you so much. So an investment in communities of color represents an investment in our entire region. When we take steps to close the racial wealth gap and support BIPOC families that have traditionally faced obstacles, we all win. So I want to just say thank you for being here with us, and we will look forward to working together on this journey. Thank you very much. Oh, by the way, Frank, I will say this to you. We will work as quickly as possible. So thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I had to check my watch to make sure it was still morning. Good morning. How are you? My name is Anna Roach. I am the Executive Director and CEO for the Atlanta Regional Commission, and it is really and truly my pleasure to be here today. Thank you so much. Frank, as well as the Community Foundation that you lead on a daily basis, for having the vision and the leadership necessary to launch this incredibly important initiative, and to Wells Fargo for their critical support, putting their money where their mouth is in the most epic way. Thank you, Wells Fargo, and thank you to the Community Foundation. It's truly hard to overstate the need for this kind of investment in our communities of color, and in particular in Metro Atlanta. We cannot meaningfully address the issues of equity in our region without tackling housing as a principal need for the folks who live here. The Atlanta Regional Commission was proud to be a partner with the Community Foundation on this particular effort, providing the key data points that were critical to be successful on this grant application, and the data that will in fact drive this work going forward. I do want to share a few key figures with you, and as I heard the partners earlier this morning sharing all of this data and information about the state of Metro Atlanta as it relates to equity, I thought to myself, I really ought to take some of these numbers out of my remarks, but I'm not going to. Because it's important for us to continue to hear these facts, for us to remember why it is that we, the partners in this room, wake up each and every day and commit to this important work of reaching equity in our region. As of 2019, and this was said by the provost, worth repeating, only 50% of households of color owned their home compared to 70% of white households. That's the highest racial home ownership gap in 50 years, and again, worth repeating. In addition, about 30% of Black households in Metro Atlanta have zero or negative net worth. That's 30% of Black households in Metro Atlanta have zero or negative net worth, and 45% lack sufficient liquid assets to make ends meet at a poverty level for 3 months if faced with lack of income. Meanwhile, our region is facing a serious housing shortage, especially at the more affordable end of the price range. You can't pick up any newspaper across the country, across Metro Atlanta, without that fact staring us in the face on a daily basis. And as of January 2021, Atlanta had less than 1 month's supply of housing stock on our market. That's compared to a recommended 6 or 7 month supply for best practices and a healthy housing market. And what housing that is available is increasingly being snatched up by large institutional investments. ARC has all the information and data. We have studied this issue over the past year, and we were floored to find out the percentage of homes in Metro Atlanta that were held by institutional investors. That means that your children, your sisters, your brothers, your mothers, your fathers are competing with those large institutional investors every time they look to purchase a home in Metro Atlanta. These businesses purchased an incredible 43% of available homes in Metro Atlanta, 43%. The data does tell a distressing story, but it is up to us, through efforts like this and others like it across the country, to change this troubling trajectory. So I do look forward, as the leader of the Atlanta Regional Commission, to work with each and every one of you in this room and on this podium today to make a difference in this regard going forward. The time for talk about making housing affordable is over. It truly is time for action, and what a better example than the one provided here. At this time, I'd now like to invite Rosalind Merrick, Chief Operating Officer for Habitat for Humanity, to join me to make remarks on behalf of that organization.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's great to see you all, and it's wonderful to be here with you and to be here at Clark Atlanta University. As young people often do, they've left me feeling so inspired and energized this morning. And I always appreciate a moment to be grounded in where we are, what's our reality, what are the conditions that we're navigating. But I really love coming here this morning and thinking about what's possible as I look around and as I look forward. I'm Rosalind Merrick, and I've had the pleasure of serving as Chief Development Officer and soon to be Chief Operating Officer at Atlanta Habitat for the past 2 years. So I thank you. Thank you very much. So I feel like a rookie in this room as I look around and I look behind me and I sit with these titans who have been focused on this issue for so long. But I'll tell you, I am no stranger to it, because as we talk about the 5,000 Black, Indigenous, people of color, the families that we want to help, I see myself in them. I am one of those families. Or to be more specific, I was at the age of 23 as my husband and I endeavored to buy our first home, and what that process felt like, how hard it was to achieve it, and that we were among the first in our family to do it. But understanding the positive ripple through the lives of our extended family, our immediate family, as we took that step forward, and all of the opportunities that have burst open in front of us because of achieving that dream. There are so many more families who need us collectively to work to help them achieve that dream. And so I'm honored to be here representing Atlanta Habitat, our CEO, Alan Ferguson, and our extended family of staff and families and volunteers and partners and other stakeholders who share the vision that I know we all do. At Atlanta Habitat, we envision an Atlanta where all people have access to quality, affordable housing in safe, vibrant neighborhoods with opportunities to thrive. We just do. We believe that it's achievable, and it should be the reality for everyone. And for nearly 40 years, Atlanta Habitat has offered affordable homeownership. We've transformed communities by acting as a catalyst for neighborhood revitalization through education, innovative developments, partnerships, long-term relationships with families like all of ours. And perhaps what's most special to me is empowering working families with opportunities to access capital, to build their wealth, pursue educational and professional goals, and build a legacy, And we do that in a way that builds a network, a family of support and encouragement around them. For just a moment, let me talk to you about who those families are, because none of them are strangers to us. These are our children's teachers and daycare teachers, providers. They are our grocery and restaurant employees. They are the people who've been bringing us our packages through the pandemic and beyond. They are the folks that take care of our bills at our doctor's offices and down at Grady, do our medical billing. They're our paralegals. These are working families of modest incomes, on average earning $33,000 a year, who just want the quality of life for their children and their families that we have in ours. And they are challenged to reach it. So as we work collectively to position 5,000 more of them to own their own home, I just want you to keep in mind those people. Let's see them, just as we saw these beautiful students here at Clark Atlanta University this morning, and see the possibility in them. Let's not forget the lives attached to those numbers. So We are honored to be a part of a greater network of 40-plus Habitat affiliates across the metro region and this great state of Georgia. Some of us are in the room here today. I see my sister from DeKalb affiliate, Sharon. But there's a greater network of 1,000 habitats across this U.S., and we are a collective force of families, staff, volunteers, faith, business, community leaders, organizations, all of us together believing in what we've seen, that home ownership means so much to an individual, family, community. We've observed its power to change the trajectory of a neighborhood and a generation, and we know together we must do more, we must serve more. And so we are excited and honored, the Atlanta Habitat team and I, to bring our multifaceted perspective, network, expertise, legacy of impact to this Atlanta Housing Collaborative. So over our 40 years, we've served 6,000 family members through 1,700 new home builds and over 500 repairs. And yet, our work is not done. And so we bring that perspective, that urgency, that passion for what we are all agreeing that we must do and no longer talk about doing. And we hold such tremendous regard and gratitude for all 48 of the esteemed organizations committed to this work alongside of us. And in fact, we've already collaborated with many of these organizations over the years in various roles as a thought partner, developer, general contractor for lots of great construction and repairs, education and support services provider, or even to some of us in the room who know about our restores, sourcing discounted home goods that we decorate our homes with, whatever it may be. In this collaborative moment, Atlanta Habitat is pleased to serve as a partner in thought and action in the strategies of affordable home ownership creation and preservation for our BIPOC families here in Atlanta region. So again, special thank you to everybody in this room who said yes to this work. Thank you, Wells Fargo. Thank you so much, Frank, and the Community Foundation team for the invitation to be a part of this collaborative and for your leadership of this important work. So before I leave you, I have a very important job, which is to introduce the next speaker, Ashani Omard. Ashani Omard is the Senior Vice President of Strategic Housing Investments at the Atlanta Neighborhood Development Partnership, or as we all know, ANDP. But previously, Ashani served as the founding executive director of the Atlanta Affordable Housing Fund, where she led the charge to raise $15 million and identify opportunities to deploy impact capital into transformative housing solutions for Metro Atlantans. She's a force. She's an outstanding citizen, leader, and colleague, and I'm especially honored to call her my friend, Ashani Omard.
So as Ashani walks up here, I just want to acknowledge that Dr. French is here today, and thank you for hosting us for this event.
Welcome, and thank you for hosting us, Roz. Thank you for that introduction. And good afternoon, everyone. I can officially say good afternoon. As Roz mentioned, I'm Ashani Omard, and I serve as Senior Vice President of Strategic Housing Investments for the Atlanta Neighborhood Development Partnership. I see so many friends, so many warm faces. It's always, always great to walk in a room where you feel like you are amongst your people, and I definitely feel that way today. On behalf of the staff, the leadership, and the board of directors, shout out to Hugh if you're still here, I see you, of ANDP, I am just so pleased to be here today to be a part of this exciting announcement. Although it seems like forever ago, it was just in the mid-2000s when decades of gains in Black homeownership and billions of dollars in Black wealth were stripped away during the foreclosure crisis and the Great Recession. It was during this time that the ANDP Board of Directors challenged the staff and leadership team to place all of our organizational focus on recovering from the crisis, with a primary emphasis on returning low and moderate income households to homeownership. We started with the pilot project, as many of you all know, redeveloping 6 homes, building out systems, and identifying private sector partners. Some 14 years later, we are building over 100 homes each year, and we remain committed to impacting lives and the financial trajectories of Metro Atlanta families through homeownership. That deserves a clap. We are so proud to be amongst nonprofit development partners leading the way in producing homes that remain affordable. Studies have shown that when families have access to safe, sustainable, affordable homeownership, children have better academic achievements, families have better health outcomes, civic participation increases, and most importantly, the seeds of generational wealth are planted. At ANDP, we see and live these outcomes every day. In a recent study of our home buyers, we see families who have increased their wealth by over $135,000 through homeownership equity. We see families who have safer home environments for children with asthma. We see economic opportunity created with additional resources that are able to go towards entrepreneurship and small businesses that can be formed. We see our resident leaders taking charge in their neighborhoods, organizing block parties, neighborhood watches, and running for elected office, changing their neighborhoods from the inside out. This is what home ownership contributes to. It's lifting families in their financial futures, it's strengthening neighborhoods, and it's transforming lives. We are so proud to join dozens of partners today in keeping the dream of homeownership alive and making it a reality. Thank you to the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta and to the dream team you've established to represent Atlanta and that is here today. Most importantly, we thank Wells Fargo for your vision. It was just a few years ago that ANDP was very fortunate enough to partner with you in the Neighborhood Lift program where you demonstrated your commitment to home ownership. And with today's announcement, we continue to push home ownership even further across our region. So we thank you for that. We thank Clark Atlanta for hosting us today. And we are just happy to be a part of this team that will change the lives of 6,000 Metro Atlanta families. We look forward to partnering. And before I leave, I have the absolute pleasure of introducing our Chief of Staff of the #1 ranked city in the country, which we all should know that if we don't know that by now, Mr. Odie Donald.
So I'll tell you, every time I get a chance to represent our mayor, it is an exciting time and thankful to do so. And I think today is extremely appropriate because he's kind of been coined the equity mayor. And today is definitely a day that focuses on equity. And so not a lot of prepared remarks, but I think everything that is to be said has been said by our dynamic panel. And I think the message for us today is that this is a great start, but there is much more work to do. And we plan to endeavor in that work with both the Community Foundation and those partners, and also with Wells Fargo. And so we are excited about this down payment and excited to do more moving forward. So we're thankful for it today and looking forward to continuing this partnership for the next 4 years and beyond.
So thank you to our great speakers, and thank you for all being here, and we're just going to open it up for questions now. And I can't see very well, so if there's a question, you're going to have to, like, raise your hand. Wow, we left you, speechless. No questions. All right. Well, go ahead.
Corporate landlords, and how are we going to reconcile that relationship? Because I know that is one of the challenges that many people in this housing market are facing. And so how does this initiative play into that, that environment? Thank you.
So it's a great question, and I'm going to make sure I'm capturing it right, because I think part of it, what Anna spoke to earlier in terms of 43% of the homes in Metro Atlanta being owned by some sort of institutional investor. And what do we do about that? And I think, to me, it's a few things. One, a lot of what the group here and some of the folks in the audience have focused on is how we better connect prospective home buyers of color to these opportunities. And then some of this, in all honesty, is about policy and advocacy in terms of what can we do to ensure that you don't have almost half of our available homes being bought by institutions that are not creating wealth or home ownership for the folks who live here. And that is, beyond something you can't fix with bricks and sticks or that is policy. And so that's something that I know everyone here, and I can speak on behalf of the Community Foundation, and we have our friends, the House ATL here as well, who are focused on how do we address from a policy perspective those things. Because there's not a single solution. Because I think that's the other thing that several of the speakers alluded to is that this closing the racial wealth gap, closing the gaps or the disparities between and home ownership is not going to be solved by one thing. It is really lots of different things coming together, and policy has to be part of that. Yep. Any other questions? All right. Oh, you have the floor. It is your house. Come on up.
Thank you, Frank. Listen, thank you so much. I want to welcome you all here, and I know that my provost has already done that. We had a meeting going on with the World Bank now on another part of campus, so we switched responsibilities. But I really wanted you all to know that this is my heart, this is my passion, and I wanted to be here. Had not planned, however, to speak until I heard my student, because your question is so very vital, and the answer has to do with what I heard. The answer was predicated upon everything I heard here. It was predicated upon the fact that 49% of African Americans own their own homes, while majority is 75%. It's predicated upon the data that they gathered about the housing market in Atlanta. My point, you are that student. I am reading now William Edward Burghardt Du Bois' Data Portrait, Visualizing Black America, preparing for the 1900 Paris Expo, where he provided for the first time in infographics data relating to housing for African Americans, educational levels, all of that. He provided that. They came to Atlanta University for that because this is where W.E.B. Du Bois was a faculty member for 23 years. So it really made me, and I had no plan on standing, but when I realized the fact that when W.E.B. Du Bois, when he provided all these data, he became, and it says in this book right here, the students of Atlanta University and the faculty members, they became the primary source of research for the United States Labor Bureau, for all sorts of United States policy-making policies. That's what we're here for. We want to continue to be the brain trust for our community. That's who we are, and it's very important that we partner through our School of Social Work with Habitat for Humanity. Congratulations, Madam CEO. I am so proud. That was amazing. With Habitat for Humanity, with the housing authorities, with partners like Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo is on our campus on a consistent basis. They put their money where their mouth is. I work with the president on a national level on initiatives. I know how serious they are. But I wanted to tell you that your responsibility as an academician and as a scholar is to provide the data points that will provide for these 6,000 families now and more in the future for these opportunities. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, I can't think of a better way to end our press conference than with Dr. French's words. So again, thank you all for being here and appreciate it. And I believe we are adjourned. We'd like to get a picture of y'all in front of the house. All right. So we're going to take a group picture. You can stay or not stay if you want.